Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining in, and good evening, friends. Welcome to our club, Education India, where we keep inviting the brilliant voices in the field of education. And today we have three big names from the education ecosystem. In my background, you can hear the voice of my dog. His name is Nawab. Apologies for that. I mean, that would keep coming. I can't stop that. We have Lieutenant General Surendra Kulkarni, who's the director at Mayo College, Ajmer, and he's also the regional trustee for Round Square, South Asia and Gulf region. We have Madam Nishi Misra, principal, Scindia Kanya Vidyalaya, Gwalior. She's also the chairperson at IPSC, which is Indian Public School Conference, one of the oldest associations for the top boarding schools in India. And we have Dr. Jagpreet Singh, Headmaster of the Doon School. I welcome you all, each one of you. And I have a little format in mind where I will start this session with a little history of each school along with a question for each one of you to start with, and then we can kind of move to next set of questions and discussions. And later, I mean, we'll also invite a few audience who may have some questions for you. So I will start with Mayo College first. The idea here is that we're talking about how are legacy boarding schools reinventing. So I would kind of first speak about the legacy part. So the origin of Mayo College, one of the oldest public schools in the country, dates back to 1869 when Colonel F.K.M. Walter, the political agent of the Bharatpur Agency, recommended a school in India for a large number of pupils with a staff thoroughly educated, not mere bookworms, but men fond of field sport and outdoor exercise. In 1870, Lord Mayo, the then Viceroy and Governor General, came to Ajmer, where in the Darbar, kind of a setting before the chiefs of ruling princes of Rajputana, he expressed his desire to set up a Rajkumar college in Ajmer. We have a couple of Rajkumar colleges in Rajkot and other Raipur, I believe. But this is, again, I mean, which is a school devoted exclusively to the education of the sons of chiefs, princes, and leading Thakurs. And it is interesting to point out that several generations of the descendants of many present at that Darbar have since continued to study in Mayo College. The college was opened in October 1875 with Sir Oliver St. John as the first principal and one boy, Maharaja Mangal Singh of Alwar. And today, under the leadership of Lieutenant General Surendra Kulkarni, students from all walks of life study in this prestigious school and make complete use of the many facilities offered. General, thank you for making time for this. My first question to you would be, what are the notable changes from 1875 to 2021 in the school, and how is Mayo College reinventing for the 21st century? And there is a fun fact, I mean, you will have to answer all this in under 2 minutes. General Kulkarni,
Thank
over to you.
you. Thank you, Ravi. Firstly, my other link with my school is that I'm an alum myself, and therefore I'm here because my board felt that I could contribute something because my heart should be in the right place. Now, what is not changed, I'll tell you, is that since 1875, the concept of holistic education has been central to our theme. That has not changed. In fact, the NEP today is talking about including co-curriculars, vocational, and sports to be integrated into the curriculum. That has not changed. But what has changed is the clientele that came. As you rightly pointed out, it was the exclusive domain of the princes and the noblemen to send their children here. We are now, after independence, a completely egalitarian school, and now people from all walks of life come. So we are very proud of our heritage, but sometimes, the heritage can itself come in your way, because in the public perception, there is an idea that this is something like a relic of the British Raj or something. And however, luckily, after every couple of decades, fortunately, a reset button has been pressed, and whatever is relevant and contemporary is being brought into our education system. To give you just one example, on behalf of Ma'am Nishi and IPSC, we just ran a 3-day teachers training program on Society 5.0, which is the way forward. And in this year itself, we are at present setting up an AI and robotics lab. So the past is very cherished, but it's the future that we are preparing for. And of course, Dr. Jagpreet has spent many years as a teacher in our school, so I'm sure he perhaps may like to add something. Thank you.
Thank you, General. I would come to Dr. Japreet. I mean, you actually revealed one of my script secret that he was an old boy and, of course, a vice principal there. So wonderful. I'll come back to you, General, on that. On 28th October 1956, the first president of India, his Excellency Dr. Rajendra Prasad, in the presence of His Highness Maharaja Jivaji Rao Scindia, Her Highness Maharani Vijaya Raje Scindia, and First Lady Mrs. Rajvanshi Devi Prasad, officially declared Scindia Kanya Vidyalaya open. Can I request you, General Kulkarni, to please mute your mic? I mean, I can hear some background voice, and Nishi, Misra, and you too. If you could just click on the bottom right corner mic icon, wonderful. So in 1956, when SKV, as the school is fondly known, was established, a premier all-girls boarding schools were restricted primarily to the convent run by Irish or German nuns. So it automatically became the sister institution to the Scindia School for Boys, which was founded in 1897 by His Highness Maharaja Madhavrao Jayaji Rao Scindia in the fort above the historic city of Gwalior. So if you haven't been to that school, I mean, you should actually see. It's basically a school built inside a fort. It's a beautiful thing. And Madam Nishi Mishra, I personally welcome you. And please unmute and tell us, I mean, what are the notable changes from 1956 to 2021 in the school, and how is Scindia Kanya Vidyalaya reinventing for the 21st century? The fun fact has changed a bit. You will now have to answer this question in under 120 seconds.
Thank you, Ravi. I like the fun fact. We'll try and keep within it. So, yes, SKV was founded in 1956, and we are just about 65 years old. And just as a small seed sown in the ground grows into a huge tree, so the vision of the founder of our school gave birth to the edifice that it has become today. Her vision was of giving uh, leadership roles to Indian women in the context of newly independent India. The boys' school, of course, had already been in existence for a long time, and this was her initiative towards bringing women in the forefront of the Indian society and going forward in Indian polity. Her vision was of having deeply rooted heritage, traditions, and culture, which should make for women who are well grounded and yet able to take wing in the environment of freedom. And that is what the culture has remained till today. The school is proud of its culture, the heritage, and most importantly, service with uh, with uh, a bearing to the needs of underprivileged women, and also keeping ourselves completely mindful of what the world is coming to. As General Kulkarni said, we just attended the fantastic Society 5.0 training program that he had held under the aegis of IPSC, in which Dr. Jagpreet Singh is a colleague of mine on the executive. He is the secretary. So, uh, having an eye to the future and yet being completely rooted in tradition, we still celebrate the a community lunch, which was celebrated even back then, with our girls seating all the entire school community from the support staff right up to me, the principal, and serving us on a sit down meal in the gardens. And uh, and yet a lot has changed. The view to the future, keeping service in mind, keeping heritage in mind. We are now into manufacturing of sanitary napkins. We have organic farming and organic composting, permaculture, the laboratories in fact, our school is perhaps the only heritage school which is now building a completely new school building. So that is going to be state of art fitted out with everything that is required for the students to dabble in all kinds of tinkering labs and coding. So, keeping a view to the future while being rooted in tradition is the hallmark of this school. And just as that little seed which gave rise to the huge banyan tree, the banyan tree bears now no resemblance to the seed that gave it life, and yet its very existence depended on that seed. So the Scindia Kanya Vidyalaya of today bears little resemblance to what it was when it started out, and yet the very air that we breathe in on campus is filled with the fragrance of the vision of our founder. So that is how we are today.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you could also add that you have six new flights started from the MP, and three
Yes,
of them from Gwalior, thanks to the aviation minister, who's also one of the founders and the management, behind it. So wonderful. In fact, I was reading on Twitter that when people were kind of updating their status, Air India. So I think, on a lighter note, that was something which I really cherish reading. Moving on
thank
to
you.
moving on to Dr. Jagpreet Singh, the Doon School is an all-boys boarding school in Dehradun, which was established in 1935. It was envisioned by Satish Ranjan Das, a Kolkata lawyer, who revised a school modeled on the British public school, but conscious of Indian ambitions and desires. The school admitted its first pupils on 10th September 1935 and formally opened on 27th October 1935, with Lord Willingdon presiding over the ceremony. The school's first headmaster was Arthur E. Foote, an Englishman who had spent 9 years as a science master at Eton College, England. Currently, the Doon School houses roughly 500 pupils aged 12 to 18. And as of May to 2019, boys from 26 Indian states, as well as 35 non-resident Indians and foreign nationals, were studying at Doon. We'll check with Hani sir about the current data. The Doon School has educated a wide range of notable alumni, including politicians, diplomats, artists, writers, and business people. Among the former alum of Doon are the late Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, artist Anish Kapoor, authors Vikram Seth, Ramchandra Guha and Amitabh Ghosh, fashion designer Tarun Tahiliani, mountaineer Nandu Jayal, Olympic gold medalist Abhinav Bindra, and social and environmental activist Bankar Roy, and Lalit Pandey, besides many other. Welcome, Dr. Jagpreet Singh, and thank you for making time even when you were invited out for a dinner. I really can imagine that you are between the soup and the appetizers. So, could you please let me know? And for folks, later on, if I address him as Honey Sir, he's very fondly known as Honey Singh. Honey Sir, please tell us what are the notable changes from 1935 to 2021 in the school, and how is the Doon School reinventing for the 21st century? There is no fun fact. Under 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Ravi. I will straight away come to the point. In fact, as you just mentioned, the Doon School was established in 1935, and the two Englishmen who came to establish the founder principles, what we call the headmasters here. So he was Arthur E. Foote, and Arthur E. Foote came from Eton, and he got with him a deputy headmaster who was John Martin from Harrow. And they both came in with a vision. But these two Englishmen who come from the top two schools of England, they came here with a very Indian mindset. And they came here with a very Indian vision, what I would call, to establish a school for the Indian boys. 1935, when the boys' school started, yes, it was basically the ethos of the school have been, and the DNA of the Doon School has been the social service. And very loudly, it's been written on the walls of the Doon School, aristocracy of service. So they want the boys, Indian boys, to pass out from the school with the chin ups, with the right education, but with aristocracy. And that aristocracy is the aristocracy of service. From 1935, there's been generations who have walked out in the various walks of life. They've done extremely well in any area you talk about in the society today. But being mindful here, I'm also saying that this is a all boys school, but we also have many girls who are the staff wards who are studying with us. So we are girls and boys school, and there are many girls who are studying as the staff children. But we have done exceedingly well in all because of the way the curriculum of the Doon School is designed. Doon School has a very strong curriculum called the Doon School curriculum. And the entire journey of the 6 years, what the boy goes through, when he comes in the D form, what we call class 7 as D form, and passes out from SC, he completes the 6 year journey, and that 6 year transition of a boy when he takes the first exam as an admission test and passes out the last admission, the last test what he takes is the SC form board exam. What he learns in that journey, the learning curve, and the beautiful transition of journey what he goes through is what makes a DOSCO. And that's what is when a DOSCO moves out, the aristocracy of service again comes on him. And that is what he gives back to the community. And that is so very important that the DOSCOs don't live for life for themselves. They dedicate it back to the society. So since 1935, every generation which has walked out and every boy which has walked out, every girl which has walked out has contributed back to the society, and they've continued giving it to the community. So when I talk from 1935 coming to 2021 or 2020 COVID, whatever the old boys, whatever the DOSCOs, whatever the girls and boys have been doing, they've been doing it because they've been doing it all the while. General Kulkarni did talk about NEP. And when we see within ourselves, we are the complete model of the NEP. And it emerges, and I say it loudly, that it emerges as if our STAs, that are spare time activities, and our sports, and the various way the way curriculum is designed, NEP ingrains in as if NEP is born out of the Chandbag. That's the campus we call it. So from 1935, the journey to 2021 has been a journey of learning, has been a journey of community living, has been journey of cultivating a true Indian boy. Yes, we have a pan India. We have from now 28 states, boys coming from all 28. We believe in a lot of diversity. And when I talk about diversity, it is diversity of geography. We also talk a diversity in finance of people who do not. A lot of people think it's an elite school. It is not an elite school. It may be an elite school which gives elite education, but even gives education on a larger scholarships. I don't want to show up by saying here, but in my last statement, I would say Doon School looks after meritocracy, and whatever comes in that way, the Doon School looks after the boy and gives the best education. That has been a journey from 1935 to 2021.
Brilliant. I mean, aristocracy and meritocracy. I mean, brilliant
Yes.
summing up there. And where does that energy comes from? I always keep wondering. I mean, and I've always written that. I mean, I sometimes wonder that if it's blood which is running in your veins or Red Bull. I mean, brilliant energy, Ani sir. Uh,
Thank
and,
you,
and
Ravi.
and while you are at it, I mean, please take turns after Hani sir, General Kulkarni and Nishi ma'am, and could you please tell us 5 edtech tools that your school cannot do without? I mean, what are those 5 edtech tools that your school cannot do without? I mean, any ERP or augmented reality or virtual reality or anything that you could kind of think of.
You know what, Ravi, when 2020 COVID hit, people were struggling, and we were already a part of it because Doon School. So what I really want to say is here, AI, robotics, artificial intelligence has been here for a long time. I mean, when people were working with STEM, believe you me, Doon School had already moved to STEAM. So the virtual reality which was existing, which were people talking about, the coding what people were talking, boys had already made programs, boys had already made softwares, boys had already done AI work already in the school. So competing with Howard or competing with Stanford and going on to the St. Edward School in Oxford, we were having a lot of competitions, and we were already skilled with all the IT. IT has taken a new turn, and this new turn had already come in back in 2014, 2015 in Doon School. So when you talk about today, we have only enhanced it further because everything was on the system here in the Doon School. So I think the most important of what the Doon School is today doing is STEM to STEAM, AI, and most important, developing our own softwares and reservoirs where we are catering now to impart education, and it's helping us in learning and teaching.
Wonderful. For our audience, I'm just trying to reset. I mean, we have invited 3 of the most, talked about school principals. That is General Kulkarni, who's the director at the Mayo College, Ajmer, and Madam Nishi Misra, who's the principal at Scindia Kanya Vidyalaya, Gwalior. She's also the chairperson for IPSC. And we have Dr. Jagpreet Singh, who's the current headmaster at the Doon School. And we are talking about how the legacy boarding schools are reinventing and kind of, moving on to 21st century. So we were hearing Dr. Jagpreet Singh saying artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, and STEM and STEAM. I mean, this is on Doon School. We would also want to hear something from General Kulkarni on what are the five top edtech tools, that Mayo College is using and cannot do without. General Kulkarni, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. As Hani was saying, and he was part of the journey himself, that way back in 2005, in Mayo College, we had established a campus-wide OFC network. And therefore, it's been a long, long time. I see in the audience, there's the principal of Man School, Mr. Sriram. He was the person who was directly involved in getting it done. And therefore, we were at an edge. And I think in this whole story of EdTech, the story is of anticipation. And fortunately for us, courtesy some alum of ours, 4 years ago, we had done a 2-month program with Microsoft in which they provided us 2 trainers and 90 devices gratis on loan. And therefore, it literally took 1 day to refresh MS Teams before we launched out into online training last year in March. So just like Hani was saying, you have to anticipate, you have to be ahead of the curve. And as I said, it's very gratifying that since we were imparting holistic education from day one, the NEP has come to us not as a surprise, but something that we just tick off the boxes to make sure that we haven't missed anything. But in most areas, we find we are way ahead. Talking of EdTech tools, there are just so many being used. But the more commonly one used, let's say we mentioned Microsoft, there's Minecraft. People use Padlets, Seesaw, Mentimeter, Kahoot, Edpuzzle, Prezi, you name it, and I can just go on and on. Because teachers have freedom to use the tools they want. There is complete autonomy in teaching. And therefore, anything which is up and running and current uh, is most welcome. But I think we are very conscious of the fact that the EdTech is only a support system. The ultimate change of positivity comes through adapting it to pedagogy. It's the pedagogy that must lead the technology, and then and only then it fits in well. And I'm happy to announce, and as Nishi ma'am just mentioned in passing, very recently we gave a demonstration of how this works. So I'm
Wonderful.
grateful
Wonderful.
to
So,
both of what both of them have said. Thank you.
wonderful. So there are some spoilers here, before it goes to media. Thank you, General Kulkarni, for that. Nishi ma'am, coming to you, if you could list down the top five edtech tools that Scindia Kanya Vidyalaya is using.
So, as my colleagues before me have just said, the pandemic has thrown up so much of technology that lay latent, unused, and we suddenly just reached out and took it on a very instinctive way. The teachers rose to the occasion and overnight became YouTubers and vloggers, and uh, children did the same. We already had robust ERP systems, and the school had become a Wi-Fi school. But the significant thing that happened was that the very technology that we would shield our children from, because in boarding schools we do not permit the students to bring in any kind of devices, the laptops and phones, at least not in the dormitories. So that became something which we now depended on for our very communication and for staying relevant. And this is something which has brought about a change in the mindset, the use of technology, the familiarity with the technology, and uh, all the platforms that are being used by teachers are being used by our teachers as well. There are combination platforms being used, Zoom, on Teams, those kind of platforms are being used. And of course, becoming YouTubers themselves, the teachers have started getting a huge following. So uh, this is a welcome change, and the welcome part of it is not because of the technology, it is because of the use of that technology, which till now seemed like a redundant thing, maybe even a negative thing. But today we are looking at changing the entire um, uh, metaphor of communication to technology driven communication, which I think is the biggest change and the biggest plus point of what the pandemic has given us.
Brilliant, brilliant. I could actually see. I mean, how schools overnight. I mean, shifted to technology. And as I said in one of my interviews, that what demonetization did to fintech, pandemic has done to edtech. I mean, all the schools who were very wary of kind of adopting these technologies were online, overnight. So
Yeah, Ravi, can I come in? Yeah.
I'm just going to pose my
Yeah,
next
because
question, and you could add.
I need to make a correction to what you said.
Please go ahead, General.
Yeah, the schools that like ours, the ones you are talking to, did not react to the pandemic and then get into edtech. As I give you examples, the history of it is running since 2005, and the training that was done in 2015-16 with Microsoft. This was all in anticipation because technical technology disruption was happening anyway. It is just that the pandemic gave a slap in the face to those who didn't
Of course,
smell
I
the
do
coffee.
agree. I
Who
agree, but
didn't
my
smell the
statement,
coffee?
my statement was it was a very broad statement, not for any of the school principals who are here. I mean, entire country, 99% of the schools, I mean, were faced a lot of difficulties in adopting technology. But the very next day, I mean, they were all online. So that was a statement more for a generalized majority. General Kulkarni, coming back to you, could you please share as to how important do you think is the school's atmosphere in boosting creativity in students?
A school atmosphere in. Hello.
General Kulkarni, my
Yeah, school. The school atmosphere. Can you repeat that again?
yeah, my question is, how important do you think is the school's atmosphere in boosting creativity in students?
Oh, it entirely depends on the atmosphere. If there's an atmosphere of arguing rather than agreeing, then definitely you will find a lot of critical thinking, questioning happening. And unless you question something, you will be a conformist. You will continue with the status quo. So you have to question things, and you have to allow. Firstly, you have to have a questioning attitude as the head of school yourself. And if you do that, then it starts percolating into the thing. So it's like an ethos, and you have to question things. You have to allow people space to have their separate opinions and views, not just opinions, but analyzed views. And you need to give phenomenal autonomy both to teachers and to the staff. Unless they sense that autonomy, they would be too eager to please and conform to what they think is expected of them. And therefore, if you want to get any fresh ideas, if you want to make any progress, you have to have an ethos. It is not school policy, but it's a school ethos which allows this to happen.
General, does school ethos changes with every new leadership that comes in the school?
Well, I won't say it changes drastically with each leadership because I think we've been blessed and fortunate that we've had a continuity of leadership in our school. And many of our heads have been there for a long time. We had Mr. Gibson for 15 years. We had Pramod Sharma for 13 years. So there is a definitely continuity matters. And with continuity, change must come. What was relevant when I was a student is many ways not relevant today. We have to move on, so we have to know what to shed and what to hold on to. But the culture of, I remember in our assembly hall, and every generation of students will tell you this, the principal will say that the business of the school is to teach students how to think, to make them thinkers. So if you have to be a thinker, you cannot be a conformist. Then you are a complier. And I think I don't want to take any special credit for my contribution. This is an ethos I inherited, but it's an ethos I foster very strongly.
Wonderful. How to think, then what to think. I mean, I completely agree. Nishi ma'am, do you think hybrid learning will be useful once schools reopen, or it is just a stopgap arrangement?
I definitely think that this hybrid learning is here to stay. There are many ways in which our own patterns of learning, our ways of thinking have changed, and we have now uh, imbibed the hybrid learning in our method of thinking and learning, such that the teacher will automatically revert to technology while she is teaching, because she will miss it if she tries to go back to the chalk and talk. I'm talking of it generally, not in the context of any one particular school. Similarly, in the understanding of children, in the way they grasp concepts, they themselves will miss it if the hybrid of the teacher's intervention along with technology is not provided to them. So it has now become something which is as uh, synonymous with school teaching learning as a desk and chair, or a blackboard and chalk, or a smartboard. uh, it's it's like saying that uh, after the coming in of a pen and notebook, did the chalk become redundant? Or from a chalk to a stylus, can you eliminate one of them? I doubt if you can. It will always be there. It has always been there. Now, I think the relevance of technology is seen far more because it has become something familiar. It has been demystified. We have reached, uh, technology has reached into our drawing rooms, our living rooms, our bedrooms, and we are comfortable with it. So I think teachers will be motivated to use it. Students will be comfortable understanding concepts using technology, but there can be no for the teacher. The teacher will have to be there to handhold, to inspire, to encourage, and to get the student thinking in order to understand how she learns for herself, learning how to learn, and learning for a certain outcome. So to give different scenarios, and to give different initiatives to the student in order to let the child blossom under her own tutelage, but allowing her to research through technology. I think that is the scene of the future that I can see.
Wonderful. While I was speaking with one of my principals, who's also a close friend in a rural setup, I mean, he said that, Ravi, I think the best way I can, preserve the technology when the school starts again is I could continue to record each session, each class, and kind of throw it on the intranet, not the internet, which is, basically only for the students of that particular class who could kind of go back and see the lecture or that particular class. And there will be two benefit of it. One, I would be able to kind of control the quality of my teachers and their teachings. I mean, they would be kind of, a little concerned that, when they are being recorded, and the principal might kind of see. And just the way, I mean, the principals actually drop in their classes in MS Teams and Zoom these days. And secondly, the students, I mean, won't really have to kind of go back to the teachers to kind of understand, I mean, what exactly she taught, I mean, because they could have that video library on their internet. So I mean, that's one solution coming from the rural setup. Honey sir, uh, going forward, I mean, what do you think need to be done on organizational capacity building in residential schools? What's your take on that?
Well, public schools are known for, creating leaders. It need the need of the hour is that we in public schools, whenever there has been situations, there has been a great teamwork within the school. A, B, there is already a system in place, which is then talking about what type of a school it is, that it is looking towards a futuristic attitude. And that is where I come to the organizational capacity. When you are running an organization, you build up a team which looks into every area of what the future can ask for. A good school would be a school which is prepared for tomorrow. I'm not talking about only from the capacity of being the leaders. I'm talking in preparing the students, preparing the teachers, preparing the parents, and taking every stakeholder to the futuristic. In this context, I must tell you that Doon School has been very fortunate that they have prepared the boys to that level that whenever there has been a situation in the country, I'm talking right about early 1940s, when there was an epidemic in the country or where there was a flood in the country, there was no need to prepare a team. The team reached out to help the community. Similarly, I'm talking about when you come to the campus to Chandbagh, you will understand every brick of Doon School speaks about what the school ethos, what the school culture, and what the school. When you were asking General Kulkarni that what is actually the how the schools the legacy schools work, the walls of the school are painted with what the soul of the school is, and that is exactly what Doon School has done in building up leaderships. Today, when I say it so proudly that Doon School has always been a nursery for the educational leaders in the country. And today, more than 150 teachers from Doon School have been the principals all over the world. Now, this speaks about the organization. It speaks about the capacity, what we're preparing of a leader. My only thing is, it's not bragging and it's not show offing. The very culture of Chandbagh is very, very clear to prepare the leaders, and leaders not for today, leaders of tomorrow. And this leadership, when I'm talking about, is so ingrained in the culture of the school. It is so much a part of the legacy of the school that it comes so organically. I mean, when you come to the campus, you will understand what I'm talking, because it's the very pebble, the very bajri of the campus speaks about this capacity. It echoes, it resonates what yesteryears to today and to tomorrow, how it beautifully links the three eras. And that is what is the strength. And I think every good school always runs on a capacity of how well organizational skills have been promoted into the school. So like Mayo College, like Scindia, Kanya, Vidyalaya, like many schools in our country and in the world, we all build up our capacity, and this is where public schools lead to. And that is why legacy public schools are today still valued and today still respected amongst all the schools in the country.
Wonderful. I mean, that was a brilliant answer to my question, and I think when you answered two of my questions, so of course you'll get some time off for your desserts. General Kulkarni, a lot of students have been, and before actually I pose this question, I see a lot of new audience in the room. We are talking about how legacy boarding schools are reinventing with the top three boarding schools of India, that is the Doon School, the Mayo College, and Scindia Kanya Vidyalaya, and we are speaking to the head of schools of these respective institutions. And of course, I mean, we will try to grill these folks. I mean, later, and actually, I'll give you a chance to kind of come up on the stage. Just be a little patient. I'll go back to General Kulkarni. A lot of students have been through a lot in past 1 year. So, how have the boarding schools planned to help the students in coping with stress, developing mindfulness and resilience?
Thank you, Ravi. But just to reinforce the point that Hani made about how the organizational capacities are built up in boarding schools, uh, just as a little aside, the fact that Hani spent 25 years in Mayo College and today heads Doon School is certification for Mayo College. He's a fine example of where we send not only our students but even our teachers.
That
Honey, I
was a
expect a
boundary.
smile from you. I expect a clap or a smile from you, honey. Come
That was a sixer from Kulkarni, sir. Hani, sir.
on. Okay.
I bow to General always.
Okay. No, no.
That
That is in a
wonderful.
lighter vein, honey, but we are very proud of you. But anyway, that besides, in this last year of the pandemic, what we have realized is that we needed to reinforce our communication with parents and students, and that over communication was better than under communication. So the first important thing was to establish not only the informal channels which exist in a good boarding school, but the formal channels. And for that, we have every day, even today, the class master opens the day by giving out the link for the day. So there's a link with the class master. The subject teachers, of course, are in link. The assistant housemasters and housemasters are in communication. The tutors are in informal communication. And both students and parents also have free access of communication to the two headmasters and myself. Now, in addition to the academic programs, firstly, knowing that it was stressful, we did not try and replicate the day's schedule for them. And therefore, we brought down the number of lessons. In fact, we started with only 2 and built up to a max of 4 during the year, so that they gave time for other activities. We conducted online co-curricular activities, even some online sports activities, uh, till, in fact, even in the month of May, I gave them a break, but in the month of June, we ran a long program of yoga. We have an excellent yogacharya in school, and till 21st of June, the World Yoga Day, we ran a yoga program. We have people coming from Art of Living and other places to come and work with our staff and children. Uh, we also, for the younger children, we do very basic Vipassana breathing exercises like Anapana. But most important of all is the assurance that somebody, you can reach out to anybody in the school anytime, and that includes me, and you will get a prompt response. And I can say in a public forum that there is no parent who can claim that they didn't get a prompt response, even as high up as me in the school. So therefore, I think uh, it was a very bad year. It has been a bad year. And when students came back for 3 months in January, we found behavioral changes in them. They were more irritable. Uh, their aggressiveness had gone up. And therefore, even while they were here, we ran a very relaxed program for some time till, of course, they started preparing for their board exams and other things. So I agree with you. It's been a very tough year, but ultimately, communication is the key. And I'm sure my 2 colleagues on this panel will also have more to add to this. But at the bottom of it, uh, regular, good, assured, and empathetic communication can mitigate the problem. It cannot solve it.
I agree with you, General Kulkarni, there. I mean, a dialogue is something which is required between a teacher and a student, a principal and a student, some point in time. And yeah, I mean, while the
Ravi, sorry, Ravi, I'm sorry. I just want to highlight one point. When the
sure,
boys came back, and they were initially in quarantine. They used to come in batches. At the end of their quarantine period, each of the boarding house masters would organize sort of a cultural evening with them, and I would make it a point to go there, because I found that my job of going there was not to see how the program was running. My job was more to show my face, and I found that you could see it in the kids' eyes. Uh, Merely my sitting there or clapping for them, or throwing a thumbs up, made a world of difference to them. So I mean, this is just a live example of what I'm sure everybody does, but has to be done. And in a boarding school, which is your home away from home, there is no escaping it. Anybody who's not doing it will be in serious trouble in a boarding school. And I have no doubt both my colleagues will vouch for what I'm saying.
wonderful. I hope, I mean, none of your students actually invited you to one of their rock show team or music team, General Kulkarni. Uh, thank you for that detailed answer. Nishi, ma'am, coming to you. I mean, how important do you think is the development of a culture of continual reinvention and innovation in schools? I'll repeat that. How important do you think is the development of a culture of continual reinvention and innovation in schools?
Uh, I first want to endorse completely what General Kulkarni said about communication. And we've always, I think all boarding schools have always had good communication with our stakeholders, especially parents. But uh, the content of our conversations have changed. Earlier, it was more about how the child was doing at school. Now it was more about how the child is doing at home. And that has brought about a shift in the relationship, bringing it more close. The bond has become stronger because on video calls and on team calls, the you can see the child in her context at home. You can see her in her room or in her drawing room. You can see her mother passing by in the background, or the father sitting and being with her at the table. So, and similarly, the child or her parents have seen teachers sitting in their own rooms uh, under a makeshift camera positioned so that the child can see what the teacher is writing. So there has been a coming together on a different platform. uh, the human touch has become a lot stronger in this time, contrary to the popular opinion that technology has taken it away. And this brings me to the question that you asked, that reimagining, reinventing, that is something which has to happen all the time. Otherwise, decay will set in. And growth means reinventing and reimagining. What General Kulkarni had said about uh, creativity, I completely agree with him. And it's not just that creativity has to come out of an atmosphere that promotes creativity. It also requires a lot of comfort, where a child or a teacher can have the courage to be creative. Because when you are creative, the world will initially laugh at you for having grandiose ideas and for having outlandish views, but it is the most radical of ideas that need to be captured and that need to be promoted. Because if that doesn't happen, then there will be no growth, and we would remain where we are today. So if we have to move forward, which I think is the very purpose of a school, to make a difference, to not remain where we are today, to provide a difference for society. And we do it through our children, through our teachers. So, for that, this comfort, this feeling uh, of being accepted as you are, of being accepted in spite of all your radical ideas, that I think is the extremely important thing, which all schools which want our students to grow and bring about change that is so required in the community at large, all schools would have to follow this one mantra of empowering children and student and teachers, and doing so by giving them the courage to be different.
Wonderful mantra for all our fellow principals if you are listening to Nishi ma'am. And also on your first you try to kind of add to what General Kulkarni said about the communication from the school towards the parents. I can recall that early last year, right, when the first pandemic, first wave kind of, came and the schools were shut, we saw a brilliant short movie made, by SKV, and which was basically the school was communicating with the students, and this is how we miss you. And I think that went really viral, and I received it from many groups. So I think, I mean, that basically shows the ethos and the culture. I mean, that how Scindia Kanya Vidyalaya actually moved from being a legacy boarding school to the kind of communication, the kind of language that the girls speak these days, and how that transformation was amazing. And thank you very much for being an example, Dr. Jagpreet Singh. I am pretty sure that you have now moved to the main course at the dinner table, but still, I'll kind of go ahead and ask you this question. Do you think it is easier to manage the reopening of residential schools? Last year, we saw the IPL like big, the bio bubble system created by many residential schools across the country, and then we heard students of the same school catching the virus. I mean, what is the revised standard operating procedure defined this year to manage schools and related operations? A lot of parents, I mean, actually, I went to a lot of parents before this session, and I asked them what is that question, I mean, that you would want to ask. And this is one of the questions from a parent in New Delhi. So, I mean, if you could kind of throw some light on that.
Well, Ravi, it's everybody's concern. And when online, I'm meeting all the parents nowadays of all the forms. The basic question which everybody's asking, when are boys coming back? And that's so very true. They've been at home for nearly over a year. We did had four forms back to school for a short term. They were here for 3 to 4 months, but that was not really a flavor why a boy joins the Doon school. I mean, because as a matter of fact, any school, because he comes for a Doon school experience, and that experience is not getting online. We may run every program, we may run every activity, we may run every sort of a physical conditioning on the online, but we are not able to give that flavor of Chandbag. We are not able to give the boy the very experience of the Doon school. So everybody wants to come back, and reopening has become now a concern. And if we think COVID will go away after the vaccination for the pediatrics will come in, I don't see. It is going to stay. When we have got the vaccinations now with the coming of the Delta mutant, I think probably we are going to go for a booster vaccination. So this vaccination boosters and all that will continue. Will we stop living? Will the boy remain at home? No way. We as schools will have to reinvent, will have to recreate, will have to redesign. And for that, I think in Doon School, we have already prepared. We are very fortunate that we have a very strong alumni. I mean, when we were talking about, you were talking about IPL, let me tell you, the IPL security was given by one of the DOSCO, Himmat Rana. And this boy, I had a detailed discussion. It was not because of any other break in the protocol. It was from the promoter's side, something had happened. And they tried to break the protocol. So when we as school have taken the responsibility and we create a bubble and we create, now bio bubble also has become a very casual term. It's like a hat, everybody wants to wear it and it's spoiled its shape. But then, having said that, we need to now design, every school has to design according to the infrastructure, a very beautiful reopening thing. We need to kickstart to restart. We need to do that. And for that, I think we have already started working on it. I strongly believe what I was told. The Kerala, of course, vaccination for the kids is coming out. Whether it comes out or not, we are surely going to have a senior form coming back. And August, we are already planning to reopen the school. We are putting our protocols in place. We are putting all the security measures in place. We are mentally prepared. My staff, my team of teachers, all are excited to have the boys back. Our pastoral team is working day in, day out. I'm sure we are going to reopen in the month of August. And that is how we'll have to make a beginning. We'll have to get the boys back. We are not going to be scared of this virus. My boys are prepared to live in the adversities, and I'm sure they will fight out this virus as what they did in the last term. And we are going to come out and bounce a little more stronger.
Wonderful. Dr. Japreet here saying that the Doon School may reopen in the month of August. As of course, I mean, this is completely dependent on the authorities to kind of allow the schools to reopen. But the question that we all should be asking is, what if COVID-19 stays for the next 5 years? What if it takes next 3 years to vaccinate all of us? And what if it's there is another variant? I mean, we have Delta one and lambdas and a lot of cases of Zika virus and a lot of new viruses are coming in, and UNICEF, UNESCO, and World Bank, have actually teamed up for mission recovering education, and they're asking for all the governments to urgently reopen schools and minimize negative impacts of COVID-19 on children. So that is, I mean, where all of these big organizations have kind of come together. I'd kind of throw this, and of course, before I do that, I mean, I'll now invite our audience to kind of raise hand and if they have any question to ask to all three panelists here. We are at the fag end of this particular conversation, and I'd kind of throw this question open to any of you three panelists who would kind of quickly unmute the mic and answer the same. What is the role of parents in reinventing the boarding school? I mean, this is one thing I mean that we need to address. Uh,
At least what I'm talking to parents, I know three words are very important, and they have given these three words to me: is the trust, belief, and faith in the school. That's it.
yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, that was more on the reopening of the schools. My question is, what is the role of parents in reinventing the boarding schools? I mean, what is the role that the parents play? General Nishi ma'am, Tony sir.
Parents need to partner with the new creation what the schools are making to reopen. What the parents now need to do is trust in the school, and when the schools are reopening, I know they are looking forward for the boys to come back. They need to partner with the school and need to help the school and create an environment and create a mindset with a very strong mental order to have that the boys come back a little more prepared, and the parents support the boys to come back to the school. That's it.
I
Great.
feel that there is also a need for a change in expectations from each other, the school and the parents. And as before, one must not lose sight of the fact that we are on the same side, working towards the same goal. And the expectations that we have from each other also have to change according to the shifting goalpost. The parents earlier in a boarding school, parents would always say that the child is with you for 9 months. How do you expect us to make any change in the child's behavior? I think that logic should not stand in today's times, nor should the logic of the teachers that the parents have to take care of every disciplinary uh, or indiscipline action by the child. I think the way in which we see each other as partners and the role that each partner plays, that has to change, and a much more realistic and relevant approach has to be taken, because we are working towards the same thing. We are living in the same world, in the same society. In fact, schools are a microcosm of that society. We mirror whatever is happening in society. So if COVID is happening outside school, it is bound to happen inside school as well. It's not as if we are immune to it or we are little islands of immunity. The Having understood these basic factors, we have to make the best of what we can, which is uh, which is the best that we can give to our children, whether they are at home or in school. And after all, there is a reason why parents have selected boarding schools for their children, and why we have opened boarding schools to cater to that requirement. So, going towards that goal together, hand in hand, uh, scaffolding our children and taking them to their logical place in society where their potential is fulfilled, these are all things now which will have to be viewed a little bit differently, because earlier it was just about competition. Now it has to be about collaboration and health. This new emphasis on health was never there earlier, at least not in the way it is today. Earlier, health generally meant wellness, fit physique, but today it is far more. It is survival. And seeing our children grow in this kind of an atmosphere, retaining all that was good in the past, without being paranoid about how the world has changed and how it is no longer as safe a place as it used to be, we have to uh, we have to tailor our own initiatives, whether parents or teachers, in order to bring up our children to be the citizens of tomorrow without having this baggage on their backs that, am I going to survive this? So I think that is the change that needs to be brought.
I completely agree. And before going for General Kulkarni's comment on this, I mean, I'd invite our audience, if you want to speak or ask questions to the principals of the Doon School, the Mayo College, and the Scindia, Kanya Vidyalaya, please raise hands, and we'll kind of quickly, next 10 minutes, I mean, we'll sum it up. And General Kulkarni, your comments on this, please.
Yeah, as far as parents are concerned, I have a simple phrase. We want engaged parents, not enraged parents. If your relationship with a parent is that you have engagement with them, it's fine. When you have enraged parents, as in some quarters it happened last year, then obviously the relationship becomes adversarial. And if it's adversarial, I don't think you should be sending your child away from home unless you trust the school, was Hani was saying. Trust is the bottom line. But let me just go back to that point which Hani was making about opening the schools. In January, when we were allowed to bring our kids back, let me tell you, more than 90% of the children came back. And of course, they have to come with parental consent. If the parents did not have faith in the school, they wouldn't have come back. In the second half of April, when we wound up, both the state government and large number of parents had said, why are you winding up? I mean, the state government had given us permission to continue after seeing our arrangements. But because some parents were anxious about the possible travel restrictions as a result of the second wave, it was a prudent decision to wind up 10 odd days before the term closed. But parental confidence in the arrangements we had made. I have mails from so many parents saying that actually our child was safer in your school than they are at home. And talking of opening up schools, our term opened yesterday on 12th of July, and all the teachers came back on 25th of June so that they completed their quarantine period. And then we were waiting for government orders. If the government had given permission, we would have rolled out physically now. So we are ready even as I speak to you. Of course, we have to respect the policy matters of the government. But from the time they allow us, we will reach out to the parents, take consent again, and switch over from the online to the physical mode. Of course, they come with their RT-PCRs. Then after quarantine, we have another RT-PCR, and only then they move into their bio bubbles. This was a well tried and tested thing, and it worked well last time. We see no reason not to have the system of bio bubbles again.
Completely agree, General, and I agree more when you say that the students were much more safer at the school than at their home. At least the school didn't had any plans to take them to Shimla, Himachal, or Dharamshala. So I completely agree when you say that. We have three guest speakers: Tripti, Anirudh, and Kanak. And I'll go to Tripti first. I mean, Tripti, in just one line, please introduce yourself, and then please pose a question to specifically if that's for any of the school heads here.
Hi, good evening, Ravi, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak. And wonderful hearing all the wonderful speakers here. I don't have a question, but yes, I run a group called Gurgaon Parents for Better Education, where we have more than 19,000 parents. And recently, we got an order from government of Haryana saying that schools can reopen. And obviously, when you get an order like that, uh, the concerns within parent community comes how safe it is. So as Mr. Kulkarni said and Nishi said, that there's a trust which should be there. And as I always say, we trust school with our kids. What more can we ask? I mean, it's not easy for school as well, seeing any child getting affected with corona. So yes, we are waiting for schools to reopen, and my kids are super excited to go back to school so that they can start a normal education and meet their friends. So yes, I think high time school should open now.
Tripti, is that the same sentiment with all those 19,000 parents who are in your community, or is it just your personal view that you are waiting for schools to reopen?
Not really, Ravi. See, every parent is different. So, yes, when I speak to my kids' parents' WhatsApp group, we have mixed kind of reactions. But yes, there are parents who keep saying when parents are going to hill station for vacations, why are they not ready to send their kids to school, which is more safer than going to a hill station in a crowded place, because I'm sure they understand school will not take any chances with any child. So it's a mix kind of a reaction from all the parents. Some parents are not ready, but I this time I'm reading more parents are open with the idea of sending kids to school.
Even if it takes paying double the fee, huh? Wonderful. On a lighter note, we'll move on to Anirudh. If you could quickly introduce yourself and kind of pose a
Yeah.
question, or you would want to
Yeah.
add.
Hi, my name's Anirudh. I've been taught by JS sir, Hani sir in the school led by Mr. Surendra Kulkarni sir. And I have, if I just respond to Tripti, I, as a parent of two children, for me, till safety is sorted out in a day school, I would not want my kids going to school. I feel, it's easier to create a bio bubble in a boarding school. And I think that's one of the USPs right now, which, I've seen the arrangements because one of few of my friends' children study at Mayo. So they were fabulous arrangements, like Sir said. And it's they were really good. Um, my question actually is that, sir, have you seen any patent issues regarding mental health in either in any of the boarding schools, Hani sir, Kulkarni sir? And secondly, in the there are phases when obviously you're studying from home and that online classes are happening. So are there issues of cyberbullying that have come to your notice, and how are they being handled, sir?
Anirudh, I'll take on that. And wonderful, Anirudh, to get here. Your taught ones now coming in front of you and asking you a question. Wow, this is good education, and you have been raised well in Mayo, I must say that. Anirudh, let me tell you that yes, we are well aware of many of the boys and girls who have been addressed to the mental well-being. And for that, my three counselors, let me tell you, are more engaged than any of the teachers. Whereas you know, of course, you have been in a residential school. A housemaster himself is the biggest counselor to all the boys. they've been invaded by the questions. There have been disruptions. Yes, their thinking patterns have changed. There has been a there's been an impact of the boys not coming back. Particularly, I'm talking about the two batches which have not seen the school. So we are very mindful of the fact that the two batches which have not come to the school, I'm talking about the early class which comes to the school, and they're excited to come into the school and live what the experience of the legacy public schools are. So two of my batch, when I see, have not even seen Chandbad. They've not even seen the Doon school experience. They need counseling. They now need to be addressed. So we are showcasing our school. We are reaching out with the activities. We are making videos and sending it to the boys. We are doing everything possible so that they understand this is how the adventure is done in the Doon school. This is how we go for cycle treks. So we are trying to motivate them, but there are certain disruptions which have come with the time, and that disruptions need to be addressed. And if we do not open schools regularly now in a normal fashion, it'll impact more and more, because these boys and girls are not used to staying at home. They have joined a boarding school, and the camaraderie and their living togetherness has been the USP. And today when they're at home, they feel isolated, they feel neglected. So my counselors are so engaged, believe you me, Anirudh. And this happens. I mean, you can understand. I mean, when there were summer vacations or winter vacations, you would count the days to be reaching back. And here it is been a story of more than a year now. So definitely it has impacted the mind of the children. It has impacted the mind of even the adults. Some of the parents are not used to having the boys and girls at home, because their life pattern is such that they've become used to of the boys and girls now living in the boarding house. They themselves are feeling it a little bit of stress. So yes, there has been a disruption where mind well-being is concerned, mind well-being is concerned. We need to address that. Apart from that, you know, we have to be hopeful. We have to give hope to the younger kids. We have to give hope to the parents. We are here to open. We are here. But then, as General Kulkarni very rightly said, I mean, the government has to give us the guidelines. They have to give us the marching orders. I mean, we need to get the first, the guidelines coming from the government, that we clear it up and we allow the boys and girls to come back. And then the schools take the responsibility of creating a safe environment for the boys and girls.
Anirudh, may I come in on that? Anirudh?
Sir.
Yeah. You see, there are, Hani has described it well. There are two aspects to it. One is the physical side, and then, of course, the cyber side of it. On the physical side, as you are well aware, a boarding school takes great pride in nurturing your individuality, but in a community setting. That community setting for that child is missing today. And therefore, their ability to relate to each other, not only the classes that haven't come to school, but even those who have come to school. And when they came back in January, we saw these behavioral changes in them that they needed. They were longing for this togetherness, and yet they did not know how to relate to each other. You know, it's like, to give an example for myself, say when we finished school and we all went to college, because we were from an all boys school, we used to find it very awkward to interact with the girls. It's not because we didn't have social skills. It's because we had, no experience of doing it, or we had lost touch. So that was the physical side. There is a need for children to come back and interact with each other. And if this doesn't happen for long, I'm afraid parents are going to pay a price for a lifetime on this. The second is the cyber side of it. Cyber space gives you some degree of anonymity. You can log in with any kind of name. You can make any group you like. And therefore, the language and discourse in the cyberspace tends to be of a low grade nature. And it soon lapses into trolling. And it soon lapses into identifying a guy or a girl and bullying them. Cyberbullying is a very, very serious problem, much, much worse than physical bullying today. Again, when they are in a school environment here, we can keep an eye on them, not as policing, but as guiding them as to how to behave with each other, gender sensitivity, and so many other things. So this business of body naming, shaming, and all this, it can never get eliminated, but it can definitely, the children can be counseled and shown the right path. And the third issue is of the parents. As I repeat what I said, The moment the government gave us the go ahead last time, the number of parents who promptly said we want to send our children back, or in some cases they said we are scared, but the kids are insisting we go back. So I think there is an overall understanding. Last year, unfortunately, the discourse went elsewhere into the realm of fees and other things. But in reality, all those, and this year's admission cycle, all three school principals will vouch for me, and many others are on the conversation today, that all those who come and seek admission in boarding schools are all saying this, that we feel that in this pandemic era, they would be safer in your environment than at home. And the biggest advantage we have is that we can check whom they come into contact with, unlike in a day school. And that brings me to my last point. And since Anirudh, you come from a political family, politicians unfortunately have not learned to differentiate between a boarding school environment and day school. So whatever decisions, policy things they give out are the same, whether it's for a day school or a boarding school. And the living environment and safety of children is not the same in both types of schools. And I think this is something that politicians need to be made aware of, even though many of them send their children to schools like ours. The new education minister's daughter studied in our girls' school. Their son is studying with Honey. And yet, when it comes to policy formulation, for some reason, they do not differentiate between boarding and day schools. Thank you.
So I think that's more of a bureaucracy issue rather than a politician's issue, sir. So Honey, sir, better have a look at that.
I can
Well,
imagine.
Anirudh, you have answered the general well. So that's why I'm saying you are raised well. And this is what we were talking about, the organizational capacities. And I think you've given the answer to all the people very correctly.
Thank you, sir. Lovely talking to you all here, sir. Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you for being there, Anirudh.
When it comes to cyberbullying, I mean, when in the first wave, I mean, we kind of, a lot of videos went viral where some high school student from Mumbai was kind of, teasing and making fun of one of the faculties, and the faculty being an elderly one. I mean, a lot of issues came, and then we saw one of, the child of that faculty coming online and kind of ranting and saying that, how uncomfortable that particular episode made that faculty. And when I show that video to my daughter, who goes to a renowned boarding school in the country, she said, "Dad, bada uncool hai. This is really uncool. I mean, what is the fun of making fun of someone who doesn't even know you? I mean, that is something which is not really cool. Of course, I mean, you do such pranks and everything with your friends. I mean, with whom you know. I mean, they won't really mind, but this is really uncool, and I mean, me and my gang, I mean, won't really be comfortable. So I mean, this is what is coming from a girl who's just entered her teens. So I think, I mean, that's something, I mean, which is not at all a case when it comes to top boarding schools, because these guys come from good families, and they basically know that, I mean, if you really want to make fun of anyone, I mean, you could very well do so on the face, but not anonymously. So with that, I mean, I'll quickly move on to my three other panelists, Kanak, Dhruvir, and Rebecca. And before I actually invite Kanak to kind of add or ask any question, I mean, I would request all of our audience to follow Education India. On the top, there is a green hut. If you click on that, I mean, you'll see the channel. I mean, we keep inviting such amazing panelists and speakers to kind of talk about education in the country. Please follow that. And of course, follow all the moderators. Myself, Dr. Jagpreet Singh, Surendra, Kulkarni sir, Nishi ma'am, Vikramjeet Singh, Roop Rai, and, I mean, you would kind of come to know, I mean, when we host some sessions and all. Kanak, over to you.
Thanks, Ravi, for having me here, and thank you for organizing this. It's very important to talk about these issues. Congratulations, Ravi, for bringing up such a wonderful daughter who can decipher the right from the wrong. I think it's incredible. I think it's a testament to you as a parent as well. Hi, everyone. I'm Kanak Gupta. I'm an educator. More importantly, I'm a big fan of all the speakers who are there today speaking, and I'm absolutely inspired hearing what we're saying. I absolutely agree that the lessons part, Ravi, probably will be taken care of by technology, but it's going to be an irreversible travesty, the social aspect, the mental emotional health, if it's not taken care of right now. So with that, I go into my two questions to the speakers for today. My first question is about my teachers. Now, with so much of upskilling happening, unlearning happening, relearning happening, I just wonder, are we putting more on the teacher's plate, more for them to bite, more than they can chew? Are we doing that for the teachers? Because the workload is going to go up. And mind you, our teachers are, as it is, we feel very overworked. And with it looks like the pandemic is not going away anytime soon. It doesn't look like we'll be away from the COVID norms anytime soon. So are we putting too much on the teachers' plates right now, and wonder what our speakers think about to reduce the load or spread the load of the teachers? My second question is, these are the speakers we're speaking to are, from legacy schools, and these are all privileged schools, and they have, deep reach as well. But I was just wondering, has it already come as part of your discussions during the budgeting meetings that, sanitization, deep cleaning, etc., it costs money, and we'll probably need to do this for the coming few years? How are you going to manage the impact on the PNL? Over to the speakers.
Ravi, you want me to address this? I can take this because this is quite close to my heart.
First come, first serve, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, so Kanak, thank you for this wonderful question, and this shows your heart that you are really bothered about the teaching community, because that is what, in the very initial year in 2020 when we were hit for the pandemic, it did hit the teachers, and it hit the teachers who were not prepared for it. So ours being an IB school and IGCSE school, we were doing the same. I mean, it was not really, the impact came on the corrections and on the feedbacks. And I'll tell you today, we have listened the work of the teacher. When I was taking my appraisals this year and I was talking to my teachers, they all said that the Kami, which is one of the software, of course, which gives you the feedback, you may know about it, of course, the 100%. Now that has made a job of the teacher very, very easy. You can give an oral feedback, you can give a written feedback, which it just takes the voice and puts it down. Now there are methods which can be reducing the stress of the teacher. And digital world, mind you, if you have made it familiar to a teacher, and with the 1 year of experience what they've got, I think it has made their life easier. They today are doing multitasking. They are, even if at home, they're doing a lot of other work along with the teaching a class. So they've learned a new style of living. They've learned a new pedagogy, I would say, where they can do a multitasking at home. Second, a very, very important thing what has happened is the teaching community has started now collaboration, which we always used to talk about, but it never used to happen. So now there's a lot of collaboration happening, and there is so much of learning, sharing, and caring from each other. They're watching each other, they're learning from each other, they're giving to each other. And so the whole community, I feel, have now suddenly become, and what Nishi was talking was absolutely right. The hybrid learning is not going to go away. Now they've made it so comfortable to the teachers that teachers will not like to shed away this technology anymore. The meetings, the faculty meetings, the staff meetings, which can happen online, has made jobs so easy even for the educators and even for the school leaders. So I think it has not, it initially did stress the teachers, but now it has made the job much more simpler. This is what my belief is.
Ravi, you said first come, first serve. So
Yeah.
you allowed Hani to get going. But I studied in one of these legacy schools, and I'm a gentleman, so I'll allow Nishi to speak before me.
Thank you, General Kulkarni. Though I have to say that Dr. Jagpreet Singh is a thorough gentleman himself. So and I thank you both for being.
Don't read implications in what I didn't say.
Okay, we'll speak about that offline. Um, so Kanak, about the PNL of our budgets. Yes, the budget allocations for not just the housekeeping but also for IT have gone very high, and these of course are being absorbed by us along with the other expenses that the school has to have. In many cases a lot of infrastructure development has happened because we need more distancing now, and of course the hygiene, sanitation, even employing more workers, making third parties responsible for certain aspects of the housekeeping, um, the development of technology, uh, buying into softwares, even hardware. So all this does cost a lot of money, and we are, at least in my school, we are still on the fee that we were charging in 2019 with a reduction on that. So uh, the schools are, at least schools like ours, which can take the hit, we are taking it on the chin because we are in it for the education, and everything else is just falls on the side. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can come in now, Kanak, on your questions. First is about the teachers. Undoubtedly, the circumstances in which they are teaching now has changed. But very importantly, and I say this to my teachers all the time, that now there is going to be a big shakeout in the teaching profession. Very soon, the highly skilled and capable teachers will be in demand, and jobs will chase them, and mediocre teachers will be chasing good jobs. And the faster the teaching community understands it, the better. They have to shed the old system of being the medium of delivering information. Technology takes care of that. And therefore, they need to spend more time on finding better ways of engaging children who have higher levels of distraction at present. For obvious reasons, they're also far more aware. They don't have that blind respect in the teacher because the teacher has the knowledge and they are the ones waiting for it. The fountainhead will come down for them. So therefore, and in the technological world, the children are far ahead of our teachers. Therefore, it's the teachers who have to play catch up. And the best way that can be done is for teachers to now, of course, Hanis very rightly spoke about collaboration and other things. And I think, recently these schools have seen an example of it, of how it was done by us. But it takes a lot of effort. The maximum amount of time that I spend of my thinking and working day is on professional development of my faculty, because many of them are not seeing what is coming ahead of them. That if they don't gear up, they will fall by the wayside, and definitely there'll be a premium on good teachers. As far as the infrastructure investments on all are concerned, well, this is the new way of life. You have to do it. And in a case like ours, it's very high because of the large campus we have, large number of heritage buildings, so they have to be dealt with very carefully. But this business of hands-free operation of infrastructure, IT, healthcare facilities, etc., we have to do it because this is the new world we are living in, and there is no running away from it. And I have no doubt that once the realization of a higher degree of normalcy comes in, both parents and the school administration will work hand in hand to understand that if they want quality, there is always have to be a premium on it.
How well said, General Kulkarni. Kanak, your remarks on that,
Yeah.
please.
No, no, absolutely. If I had to bet my life, Ravi, that our three speakers would give perfect answers, I should have actually. They were absolutely perfect answers. And thank you so much for enlightening us. Thanks. Over to you, Ravi.
Wonderful. And I think, Vikramjeet, my fellow moderator, would be very interested to actually deeply study the heritage behind the schools, that we are talking today. So, Vikramjeet, let's plan a road trip to Ajmer, Dehradun, via Gwalior, and kind of, spend a couple of days studying the heritage, part of the schools.
Can I come along, please?
Kanak, if you have a fine bottle of, a single malt or maybe a great Burmese coffee, we can kind of treat it.
Always yes. Always yes, Ravi. Always
Oh,
yes.
wonderful. So going forward to Rebecca. Rebecca, can you quickly come and introduce yourself and please add to the discussion here?
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Rebecca. I'm an educator from New Delhi. I had just two questions. So I personally don't teach in a boarding school, but I've heard from teachers in other boarding schools in Delhi NCR region that with everything going on, parents want to keep students home. So they have seen a lot of students opting out of boarding or opting out of these general boarding schools in general. So is this something that's being seen even with the legacy schools where a lot of students are being removed from boarding school and parents are preferring to keep them in the same city as them. And secondly, just with this is from personal experience. We've had a lot of students who lost family members, especially more in terms of grandparents and extended family members during the second wave. And is this a good time to have children going back to school? I mean, if another wave hits, uh, just in terms of mental health, is it better to have students at home or with their parents during these difficult times, or should students be kept safer in a bio bubble that's there in a lot of these schools? Thank you so much.
And I will actually add one more question to what Rebecca asked to all the three panelists here. What are your schools doing for the students who have lost, I mean, one or kind of both of their parents? I mean, any scholarships, any special fund created for them? Anyone who wants to come in?
I'll take
Yeah,
that, Ravi.
Ravi.
And
Oh, sorry, Nishi
oh,
ma'am, please go ahead, ma'am.
Sure, please go ahead.
thank you, General Saab. So, Rebecca, yes, I too have heard about a lot of schools where the parents are opting to keep children with them. But in our schools, the uh, the withdrawals that we have had uh, over a period of, let's say, the last 10 years, the graph is more or less the same. In my school, for example, I have the maximum children leaving after class 10 in order to go to Kota and study. And I don't want to go into uh, what kind of schooling they have and what kind of output they get. But very strangely, it is the same trend that is there this year. And in fact, more students have opted to stay rather than go. So if you look at the graph, it has dipped a little bit in the last 2 years rather than wholesale students wanting to move out. What has not happened this year is the number of parents coming to the campus to see the school, because it was not possible to do. So that may have impacted the wait list that we have, but it has not impacted the intake, or it has actually positively impacted the withdrawals, because those have been less. I think I may be speaking for all of us who are in the same bracket of, of legacy schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishi ma'am. Yes, I agree with you. I don't think there's been any significant dropouts because of COVID. There have been a few cases, no doubt, and where, of course, they have lost any near or dear ones. It's the responsibility of the school to ensure that there's continuity of education. And at times like that, I don't think, finance is not even considered. The first thing we inform the parents is, please rest assured that your child's academic continuity will be maintained. I don't think anybody even has a second thought on that, and I'm sure that applies to any, in almost any respectable school. That having been said, this business of people, I don't know, the Delhi NCR, what happens? I don't know why, what you are saying, a lot of people have dropped out of boarding schools. One of the things you also remember in a place like Delhi is that people have a variety of boarding schools. So you can have a boarding school in which you are there for 5 days a week. You can be there as a day boarder. You can be there for the weekend, but not for the rest of the week. So given all that, and I think in Delhi, the situation had become very, very bad in the second wave. You're aware of it. But I don't think, we have not faced that kind of concerns. And hopefully, as I keep saying, if it's a matter of safety and putting them in a bio bubble, then it's better to put them where access is restricted. And it is best done in a fully residential school.
Well,
Hani, your turn, please.
General, I mean, I would want to come in here. I mean, since admissions in the legacy schools like Mayo, Doon, and Scindia are a problem, so I think, I mean, you won't see this particular trend. But for those boarding schools, I mean, where admissions is, very, very easy, you don't even need to kind of sit up for an exam. I think, a lot of parents actually chose to deroll their children from those schools. And Rebecca is right there, because, I mean, they couldn't kind of, make any sense of paying 3.5, 4, 5 lakh rupees a year only for the online classes. So I think, I mean, that was one trend, and I read a news in Hindustan Times late last year. So I think that could be a case for those schools where admissions is not a problem. But of course, I mean, you guys, I mean, come from a very elite background where admission is again a issue. So I mean, that's just one point I wanted to add. And over to you, Jagpreet, sir.
Well, Rebecca, I would really give you a very clear picture because I did a lot of study about this, where you partially go with the media news, which did say that the schools in Delhi are getting a hit. Let me tell you very clearly, when I was making a dialogue, and I know there's two of my parents who are listening at this moment, and one of my alumni is also listening to this. I will make it very clear that when I was talking to the parents believe that the boarding schools are far more safer place, because when once the child comes in and the school takes in the security protocol, everything is safe with the child. He does not then go out of the campus and then comes in. In a day school, there is more, they're more vulnerable to get the virus. They are mixing with so many people. They are doing so much of interaction on the personal basis. Where in boarding schools, I must tell you, even, I mean, when we are talking about legacy schools, it's okay. I also thought that. But the maximum hit has come from the NRI students, the students who's on the west coast of America, and we are doing a hybrid class, that's okay. But then when online classes are working, and they send their boys to the legacy schools and thinking that the school will give a legacy, will give a campus, the campus ethos work on the boy. And if that does not happen, the boy has not come back to school for a year, and neither is he joined the school in abroad. So he's neither made friends there nor making friends here. And physically, he's in none of the school. Now that is impacting. Now that is impacting that boy. I can understand. So NRIs are being hurt very badly. But where Indian community boys, when I'm saying that the boys from Indian pan India, they are very, very happy to be in the boarding schools. We've not had, I'm quoting here, we've not had a single withdrawal. And where my admissions are concerned, whatever our average used to be for admissions last year or the year before, we've already crossed that mark. So that means the belief is more now in the boarding school. And that comes by faith, that comes by experience. And the parents are making a deliberate choice that the boarding schools are safer places for the children today. This is exactly the words of the parents I'm speaking to you and resonating the voice.
Wonderful, Rebecca. Any closing remarks on that, please?
No, thank you so much. I think all of them answered my question quite well. Thank you so much.
Perfect. So we are at 9:58, almost 10 p.m. Thank you for agreeing to kind of speak for an hour and kind of extended that to 1.5 hours or so. Thank you. If we don't have any concluding remarks here, I would really want to thank Dr. Jagpreet Singh, who's still out of the dinner. I mean, sir, have you had your desserts or are you still in your main course?
I'm actually having the main course if you see me. Thanks, yeah, Ravi.
Wonderful. So I mean, I could actually sense that. I mean, hearing the cutlery, voice in the background and some, light music. Thank you very much for giving, your precious time to us, Dr. Jagpreet Singh. Really
Thank you
appreciate
so
that.
much, Ravi.
And
Thank you.
thank you, General Kulkarni, Nishi ma'am, Vikramji. Thank you so very much for silently kind of, moderating this. Thank you, Rebecca, and all our audience. And I could see, I mean, that almost 80% of them, I mean, were right there from the beginning to the end of it. Thank you so much, and please do follow all the speakers and, of course, Education India, the club. And we'll see you on the other side really soon. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Ravi. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone.